everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is my colleague, Alan Ohnsman, Forbes senior editor and author of the Current Climate newsletter. Alan, thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, Brittany. Good to be with you today.
It is good to have you back because Tesla right now is preparing to release a small fleet of robotaxis onto the streets of Austin in June. And you're reporting that this rollout from Elon Musk's EV company looks like a disaster waiting to happen. So to start off the conversation, how so? What is this disaster that you're predicting?
Well, sometimes products launch when they're ready, and sometimes products launch because someone just wants to put it out. In this case, there is absolutely, objectively, no evidence that Tesla is ready for this step. For years, they have offered software known as autopilot and then FSD, full self-driving, neither of which are technically full self-driving because they do require a person to be watching and engaged at all times because they're flawed. To jump from that to then a robotaxi service that's making its way around a busy urban area like Austin, Texas, with lots of pedestrians, bicyclists, dogs, double parked trucks. That is a big leap. And there has just, up to this point, absolutely no evidence to back up any of the claims being made by Elon Musk and Tesla about doing this. So it seems highly risky, but it is to make good on a promise that he made. He said, we will do this in June. And by God, they're going to try to do it in June.
And so you're saying, hey, this is not safe here. I mean, how is it not safe? Walk us through exactly what we know about the safety features so far of these Tesla robotaxis.
Well, the most obvious one is Elon Musk believes that cost is the primary target to do low-cost robotaxis. And the comparison would be to Waymo. Waymo uses what would be an expensive vehicle. It starts with a $70,000 electric Jaguar, and then it adds maybe $20,000 or $30,000 of tech on top of that in the form of laser LiDAR sensors, radar, audio sensors, multiple cameras, maybe even heat imaging, thermal sensors. So it's really loaded up with all sorts of additional sensing capabilities that allow the Waymo vehicle to see in the dark, to detect hard objects versus soft objects. From a distance, for example, if your cameras on your robotaxi see an object in the road, like a round object, it could be a cardboard box or a balled up, wad of paper, something that's harmless. The cameras don't know if that's a rock or a paper box. If you have radar, LiDAR, some of these other sensors, there's no risk from this object. It's not a stone, it's not solid. Tesla feels that's not necessary, that just using cameras is fine. And Musk has said repeatedly, this will give us a huge cost advantage. We will be so much cheaper doing a Tesla robotaxi versus a Waymo robotaxi. Most experts would say, number one, that's incredibly dangerous because Tesla is using 5 megapixel cameras, 8 5 megapixel cameras on its vehicle. Your iPhone today probably has a 20 megapixel camera, a 40 megapixel camera, maybe even more. Your iPhone, if it's a new one, has a better camera than what Tesla's putting on its car. And your iPhone is not driving in the street, and doesn't risk killing people. So that one basic point about going cheap on hardware is admittedly very, very risky. And I know many experts who research autonomous vehicle tech are very concerned about this. And they repeat the absence of these additional sensors as backup to give the vehicle more information so it knows what it's going to encounter is really important. LiDAR that is used by all the other AV companies that Musk eschews is really important because not only can you see in light or dark, but you see in 3 dimensions. So LiDAR is bouncing a laser beam on objects around you and basically painting a 3D image of the world. So it allows the vehicle to really see depth and density sometimes of objects. This is very important for the computer to then process and understand what the settings are like. Tesla does not have this capability. It's relying on its computer system and cameras, and that's it. The other thing that it is doing is also very heavy reliance on backup remote operators. So right now, they're going to start initially with 10 to 20 vehicles. There will be people monitoring very closely at remote stations and potentially taking control of those vehicles if they need to in an emergency situation. So you think you're in a robotaxi that's driving itself, but maybe that's actually being remotely driven by a technician to avoid an accident or to get it out of a difficult situation. Waymo has its own remote service, but what they're doing is monitoring. They're not controlling the vehicle. If the Waymo vehicle gets into a jam and doesn't know what to do, the remote operator will simply send it instructions and tell it, okay, you should, go 5 miles an hour to the left or something like that to avoid this problem to get out of the jam. But there's no joystick, where they're sort of controlling the vehicle remotely in that sense. And the reason for that is experts will tell you it's very dangerous because of lag. If you're relying on cellular networks to convey this information, it's not instantaneous. And even if it's a second or two delayed, that can be very dangerous in an emergency situation. So you don't want to rely on remote operation for that reason. It appears that Tesla is going to do exactly that, however.
I'm putting myself in the head of a consumer for a second, and cheaper might be great if you're buying a bag, if you're buying clothes, if you're buying material items like that. But cheaper is not always better when you're about to hop in the back seat of a self-driving robotaxi and hoping that that's going to get you safely from point A to point B. So cheaper is not always better in this case, but how have test drives for the Tesla robotaxi been going? Have they been rocky? What do those really look like?
Well, we don't know a lot because it's not been a public process. There's been some reporting, interviews with some of the test drivers that are doing these circuits in Austin where the system's going to be available. And according to some of the reporting, it feels rushed, like they're rushing to meet a deadline to make sure that they can, so that Elon Musk can deliver what he said he would deliver to the launch of this in June. We don't know the exact start date. We know it's soon, probably the early part of June. But to go back to your earlier point about cost, you're exactly right. You don't want to scrimp on cost where human life and safety are involved. And the other issue is this is all very, very new. Waymo has been working on its autonomous driving technology since 2009, so it's in year 16. They began public service 5 years or so ago in Phoenix, and they've been expanding rather quickly now in multiple cities. Um, the fact that they're using more expensive tech is completely normal and understandable. You want to make sure you know how to do this first. And then it's easy to begin taking cost out as you master something. That is the pattern in all new technologies. Cell phones used to be gigantic and cost a ton. The same with computers. The same with all sorts of phones and different tech products. Over time, things get better, and as you master the technology, they get cheaper and more efficient. And so you do that, trying to be very low cost out of the gate for a technology you have not yet mastered. It doesn't really seem like the best idea, but that's where we are with what Tesla is doing. So that is why, there is some concern about how this program is going to go.
You and I have talked about Elon Musk for a while now, and a trend in the conversation seems to be that you've said before Elon Musk will say deadlines, he'll blow right past them, and he won't follow through with getting a product there on time. This is a self-imposed June deadline. If people are saying, hey, this feels rushed, these are people's lives at risk here, hopping into a robotaxi, hoping and praying that they get from point A to point B safely, and Tesla's saying, hey, we can do that. But if they can't, why rush this? Do you think we're actually going to see this rollout, albeit it is a small rollout, but do you think we're actually going to see it happen in June? Because this is a self-imposed deadline by Elon Musk.
I think we're going to see something. And I think what it's likely to be, they talk about ODD, which is operational driving domain, where the system can operate. It is likely that Tesla will offer the service in an extremely tight, limited area. It's probably going to be like a highly used corridor in downtown Austin, but the service will not go everywhere. It'll be, you can use it within this zone that they feel comfortable operating in. And again, it's going to be a very small fleet of vehicles initially. These are going to be Model Ys that the company's modified. And I assume there will be a pretty detailed waiver that anyone who wants to use this is going to have to sign, saying you're not going to sue Tesla. I mean, there's to consider the liability risk that this presents. It's considerable. Saying you're going to be low cost at the outset with like just cheaper cameras and cheaper tech, and so you're better, that could be more than offset by massive liabilities if this proves to be a dangerous and unreliable system. The concern is that's exactly what it's going to be, that you're putting something out that's not quite ready. Interestingly, last week, the head of Tesla's AV program, Ashok Elaswamy, gave an interview to a site in India, and he conceded that Tesla is probably a couple of years lagging behind Waymo, which is maybe a generous assessment. But even the head of their program, admits that they're not where Waymo is right now. He didn't respond to Forbes when I had asked him for this piece a couple of weeks ago, to comment on where things stood. But I thought that was quite an admission to come out and say that publicly. So I think what's happening in Austin, it's going to be a very controlled, very limited program to prove Elon right. I don't think it's going to be scalable. I don't think they're going to be ready to go beyond Austin anytime soon. They want to move into California, for example, and Tesla's had a permit to test AVs in California for like 10 years now. They've never filed test data with the State Department of Motor Vehicles. Every other program has. Waymo, Cruise, which doesn't exist anymore. Apple, which was developing its own self-driving car program up until a year or so ago, Apple was filing regular data with the state of California, and it's all publicly available. So you can see accidents, you can see, issues that they had during testing. It's just there. Tesla's had this permit. They've probably tested in California. They've never filed anything. So there's no way for the public to know how good is this system. Elon says it's very good. There is no supporting evidence to back that up.
So aside from Elon Musk's word, we don't really have much evidence to go on that. And I find that Waymo admission really stunning, because that is the opposite of what Elon Musk is saying. Because you reported that he said this on a company call at the end of April, quote, "I don't see anyone being able to compete with Tesla at present in the self-driving car and taxi space." You're saying that a leader in the space, or the leader in the space, is Waymo. How does Tesla stack up to Waymo when it comes to these self-driving robotaxis?
Well, I've been in different versions of Waymo's robotaxi for the past 6 or 7 years before it was hauling people publicly. And it was jerkier, 6 or 7 years ago. And what you notice as time has gone on, how it just gets smoother and smoother and smoother. And I observe them now. I'm in LA, they're in big chunks of Los Angeles. And it's fascinating to watch how they behave, because increasingly the Waymos operate very much like human-driven vehicles. They almost show personality. One was following me or next to me in a lane a couple of weeks ago, and was trying to decide if it had room to pass me and move ahead. And at first, it attempted to, pulled back, and then it waited, and then it did it at a safe time because it seemed like maybe it was in a hurry. But the way that it did it was so human-like. Like it was fascinating to watch. And you look over and it's like the vehicle's empty. There's, so the car is literally driving itself. It's very impressive to watch the evolution of that technology. And I've ridden in them several times recently. I do feel comfortable. They're not perfect. There are mistakes that happen from time to time, and there are glitches, and those get ironed out. But they are fortunate in that they have no fatalities and no serious accidents or injuries thus far. I mean, that could change, but up to this point, so far so good. But they've been very public about their progress. They, maybe quarterly or several times a year, will publish these data reports updating the public on basically the performance and safety of their fleet. And they will have this peer reviewed. So they will send it off to scientists or researchers to look over their data and decide whether this looks valid or not. Now, some researchers would say we'd like more, like we'd like to have more data. They always want more, but they do put it out there, and the public can review this. The same is not the case with Tesla. They do an annual safety report on their system, but it's not vetted by anyone outside the company. And for the piece, I did talk to one researcher who reviews this, and his point is there is no way to validate anything that they're saying. I'm not getting all the raw evidence. I need to say this is a safe system or not a safe system. So that's really where we are, and it's been this element of lack of openness and disclosure about their technology that I think should give folks a little pause.
And I think something that really stuck out to me in one of our last conversations is I was more of a robotaxi skeptic. I said, I don't know how comfortable I would feel hopping in there without a human behind the wheel. I don't know if I see the appetite for robotaxis. And you said, no, I was really comfortable in one. It was human-like, and Waymo especially is super transparent when it comes to their progress, when it comes to their safety features. So I am curious, when you're talking to industry experts, which you did for this story, do they think that Tesla's robotaxis are ready for prime time?
I haven't spoken to anyone who would voice that opinion. There's just no. The simple answer is no. What Tesla has done prior to this is what's called an ADAS system, which is basically it's a convenience feature. Your vehicle driving on the highway, it can hold a straight line on the highway, it can brake, it can change lanes, and those are convenience features. But the human must be ready to take over at any given time. The former head of Waymo, John Krafchick, used to say, if you have to have a driver's license to get in this car, it's not self-driving. That if the car cannot handle road conditions on its own, it's not an autonomous vehicle. End of story. To say someone has to be ready to take over at any time, that's a huge gap between those two things. You can ride in a Waymo robotaxi. No one's going to ask you to see a driver's license. The vehicle is registered and permitted to operate that way. I don't know in the case of a Tesla robotaxi if they're going to say to riders, oh, by the way, if you're sitting in the front seat behind the wheel, you may have to take over if things get nutty in here. So we'll see how that plays out.
This is obviously a super new technology, and you've talked before about how the future of Tesla isn't exactly bright. Is this robotaxi capability, if Tesla does roll it out and when Tesla rolls it out, is this the future of the company?
Elon Musk believes it is. He's made that very clear the last few years. He is really betting the farm on this. EV sales at Tesla are hemorrhaging right now. They're going through a bad time. But he said that's okay because we're going to be the robotaxi company. We're going to be the robotics company. We're going to be the AI company. So he is really betting on this pivot. And the first key one is mastering autonomous driving and the robotaxi. I think objectively, there is very little supporting evidence to show that the company can do that right now, that it's ready to. Again, I hate to keep going back to Waymo, but that's sort of the benchmark that you have to compare programs to. Waymo has spent billions of dollars, and they've had this very gradual approach to developing their product. They've been testing at their own private facility to try all kinds of crazy things. They test in computer simulation intensively. Long before they began trying to haul customers, they had just done unimaginable amounts of real and virtual test miles of their technology. And there's this kind of constant updating of the software and constant refining. So it took them billions of dollars in 15 years to kind of get to this point where they're now ready to launch. I mean, they're in Phoenix, they're in San Francisco, they're in LA, they're in Austin, they're going to Atlanta, they're going to Miami. I mean, they keep adding all these cities. That took a long time to get to that place. And never once did they set a target. In all the years I've been covering Waymo, they never said by such and such a year, the system will do this and be available here and there. They don't announce anything until they think they're actually ready to do it. Seems like a good idea with a new technology where people can die if it's not good. So, we're not talking about apps and new phones and tech that is fun, but if it glitches, it's annoying. In this case, if it glitches, people die. I mean, you want to be very cautious when going into a space like that. You see that a company like Waymo or Zoox and others that are in this, they're trying to be cautious. They don't want to kill people. They want to make sure that the system is ready to go. Unfortunately, I don't sense the same level of restraint and caution coming out of Tesla.
I want to talk about the brand piece here because to that point, if it glitches, someone could die. I mean, the last thing optics wise for a brand, if that feels rushed, that doesn't look good for the brand. And Elon Musk, as you and I have talked about before, he's been bad for the brand in terms of being so attached to the Trump administration, for being part of Doge. And from the brand perspective, I mean, people wouldn't go into a self-driving car that's prone to crashes. So what could a spotty record do to Tesla's overall brand?
It would be a problem. I mean, interestingly, there are something like 13 known fatalities involving the use of autopilot and FSD that have been investigated by U.S. NHTSA and road safety agencies. Internationally, it's dozens of potential fatalities, and this is where over-reliance on the tech, where the driver wasn't paying attention, the system failed, the person did not react in time, and something very bad happened. So they already have a spotty track record on safety as it is. Tesla's been very fortunate, though, in that it's faced no real government penalties of any sort up to this point, which is fascinating. But that has been because at the end of the day, regulators had said it's up to the driver, the human driver using this tech. Even if you thought, it might have more capabilities than it does, you are told you must stay engaged and be ready to take over driving. That's not the case with a robotaxi. With robotaxi, you call for the car, it shows up, picks you up, and the assumption is you don't have to worry about anything. The car is in charge. So there is no element of the human needs to jump in and take control. That's what's so different in this case. So if there are collisions and accidents that occur in Austin, it's going to be a setback for sure. That will really perhaps begin to wear away, even for the true believers that Elon can work wonders. That could do some serious additional damage because this is a gamble. One would think that they would want to make sure that it was bulletproof before you do something like this. But all indications are this is happening just because he wants it to happen at this time, not necessarily because it's ready.
Yeah, based on your reporting, it doesn't seem like this is exactly bulletproof. So what do you think, or what are you looking out for next between now and some point in June when this rollout does happen in Austin?
I think, it's going to be interesting to see how the language around the program evolves. I think he's up to this point has really said, oh yeah, we're going to launch in Austin. And by the end of the year, we're probably going to be in multiple markets all over the place, unless there are regulatory issues that prevent us from doing that. I think he's already given himself kind of an escape hatch in this case. My own expectation is they will launch something in Austin. I don't know exactly how the program is going to work. I am not optimistic that they will have the ability to expand the program and take it to a lot of new markets within the year because it simply won't be ready to do anything like that. I think they will operate it. I think basically it's going to be kind of like the Vegas loop that Tesla operates in Las Vegas, where the Boring Company drilled these tunnels under the Las Vegas Convention Center, and they're currently expanding them. And you get inside a Tesla driven by a human to go from point A to point B. It's both very expensive, it's not an efficient way to move human beings around. And at the end of the day, it's like, wait, what's the point of this? What did you accomplish? Unfortunately, I think the Tesla robotaxi launch in Austin is going to be sort of a parallel to the Vegas Loop project, where it's a lot of noise and big promises, but at the end of the day, it doesn't amount to that much. Meanwhile, Waymo is operating in Austin and is doing just fine and seems to have all the demand it can handle for its service there. So I don't know. I think the language and the goals for his robotaxi project may evolve in the months to come, where it becomes a little more circumspect and not quite as grand as has been promised.
Well, I'm certainly very curious to see how this rollout goes, and I'm sure that you will be on to break it down when it does happen, or if it does happen, rather. Alan Ohnsman, thank you so much for joining me. You're welcome back anytime.
Great. Thanks. Good to be with you, Brittany.